Hi guys, coffee time and story time. Guys, I don't know if you have experienced joining a pro-life rally. I once joined 40 Day for Life rally together with my Legion of Mary members. We used to walk in front of Women's Hospital where the abortion here in Winnipeg is being done. And we pray our rosary. We walk back and forth, making sure that we offer no obstruction to the pedestrian flow. One day, there were only two of us at that time. Our prayer was interrupted by honks. Motorists would honk and then they would show approval, thumbs up, or disapproval, thumbs down. This disapproval be followed by yelling at us, the F word, show us the finger. Not only the motorist would show approval or disapproval, but also the pedestrians. I remember one time a group of young girls telling us, "Don't you have better things to do?" That kind of thing. But one day, a young teenage girl approached me and engaged me in a discussion, a very civil discussion, and she asked me a question. I'm not sure if that was a theoretical question or that question of a situation really happened to her or somebody else. She asked me, what if a girl is impregnated by her abusive boyfriend? So a young girl still in school got pregnant. So that young girl has no job, the boyfriend has no job. What she was telling me essentially was, if a baby would be born in that situation, that would not be an ideal one for that baby. And she asked me if would I approve of aborting that baby. So guys, with that scenario that this young girl has presented, I gave all the arguments that I can think of in favor of letting the baby be born. Like I said, if the husband is abusive and the girl is young and still in school and has no job, they can put up the baby for adoption. And I said that for you, you'll say that the situation is not so ideal, the child will just be unhappy. And then I said, who knows that the child will not be unhappy and miserable? Because I've seen kids in the Philippines where they are so poor, there's really nothing in life, but they're happy playing. So all those arguments that I can think of, I gave them to her. But then we parted ways, and I'm sure that I have not convinced her. She still has that mentality that abortion was really justifiable. This is also what I noticed with pro-abortion advocates. They're so passionate about their stand. They're so convicted. They're so convinced that their stand is really right. They'll shout, they'll join rallies in favor of abortion. What I'm thinking is, you can't really fault them. These people born in a society which has a contraceptive mentality. In the 1960s, contraceptive pills was approved. In this particular time, you have the phenomenon of sexual revolution, sexual liberation, or free sex. From this time, people have that contraceptive mentality. They may not be contracepting, but they have that mentality already. So much so that in 1968, Pope Paul VI issued an encyclical called Humanae Vitae. And this encyclical is the official stand of the church. The Catholic Church has been against artificial contraception, but then because of the prevailing contraceptive mentality in the 1960s, the Pope has to issue an official encyclical. This encyclical basically said the sexual act has two components: procreation and unitive. This unitive aspect of the sexual act is the pleasure component, but in this order: first procreation, and secondly unitive. The sexual act is exclusive only for marriage. Now, because of this contraceptive mentality, the sexual act was dichotomized so that the procreative part is opposed to the unitive part. So with the contraceptive mentality, it took away the procreative part of the sexual act. So it's now seen as just the pleasure part. This mentality has prevailed since 1960s up to the present. So that's why when there is pregnancy that occurred in this sexual act, that pregnancy was not supposed to be there, because this couple who engaged in sex did the act only for pleasure. Now, because there was pregnancy, then it has to be taken out of the equation, because they did not sign up for that in the first place. Now, the pregnancy that occurred, the fetus that is growing, is considered even a tumor that has to be cut off as soon as possible. That's why you notice during this lockdown period, abortion was considered an essential service. Essential because it has to be taken off as soon as possible. It cannot wait until the lockdown would be lifted, because the baby will continue to grow. This is the reason why, as I've said, you cannot fault those who are taking the pro-abortion stand, because they were born in a society where sex was not taken as a procreative act and as a unitive act. Sex was only taken as a unitive act, as a pleasure act. So that's why this particular girl who asked me that question, whether I would approve of that baby be born, even though the husband was abusive, even though the girl was young, for her, abortion is right, because they did the act for just the pleasure, not the procreative part. So it just is logical that whatever resulted from that act, which was not supposed to result, should be taken away from the equation. So this is also true with gay unions. If you take away the procreative part, then giving pleasure to same sex would be okay. When sex is considered only for the pleasure part, same-sex unions would be okay. Is it okay to separate the procreative aspect of the sexual act from the unitive? Now, guys, remember that we are created by God. And as you might think, when we create something, we create that something for a purpose. Like, for example, in carpentry, when we create a chair, we have that thing created for anybody to sit on. This is, I've heard of this from Father Michael Smith. When you create a chair, the essence of that chair is its chairness. So it has an essence in its existence, its chairness or its tableness. You notice also that when we buy something, that particular thing, like an appliance, I just bought a tripod a few days ago, and that tripod has with it in the box a manual instruction how to use that thing. It came with instructions, I hope. And especially in appliances, there is always a manual. And that this manual you have to follow, because otherwise that appliance will be broken and you will not be happy with it. To maximize your happiness of that particular accessory, you have to follow your instruction. And for that appliance to last, you have to follow the manual the manufacturer sent you. Now, with us, God made us. In the Bible, He said that the sexual act is only reserved for married couples, because the sexual act composed of the procreative purpose and the unitive purpose. You need to have a family for a baby to be born into, so that this particular baby will be taken care of, will have psychological, physical, mental, and spiritual health, which should be taken care of by both the father and the mother. As per the analogy of an appliance, if we do not follow the instruction given by God, what would result? Brokenness, unhappiness, low self-esteem. And by the way, in this Encyclical Humanae Vitae, St. Pope Paul VI already predicted in his prophetic words what will result if we persist in this contraceptive mentality. We will have broken relationship, broken families, because naturally this contraceptive mentality, this contraception, will predispose the spouses to think of infidelity. And then we have low self-esteem, because we are being used by our spouse. We use our spouse, he uses us. It's actually both. Also, St. Pope Paul VI already predicted that womanhood will be compromised. That's why women now are seen as sexual objects, sexual toys. There's no more respect for women. And then we have suicidal tendencies, especially for those women who aborted their babies. They are meant to be mothers, but they refused motherhood, and that is against the nature of women. I'd say that this pro-abortion advocates and those who favor abortion cannot be faulted because of the prevailing contraceptive mentality, where we separate two important aspects of the sexual act: procreation and unitive aspect of the sexual act.